guys, we're going to do the activity that we were supposed to do. If you're looking on your calendar, it's the video that, it's the activity that we were supposed to do before spring break. Now, this video is different than normal because I'm having to use my actual phone to record this. So this may, unfortunately, be upside down on your screen. So I'm thinking maybe the best thing would be to get a tablet or your phone to watch this, unless there's some way on a computer that you can flip it upside down. I know you can with a picture, but I've never done this with a video before. So we'll just kind of have to be really flexible with everything nowadays. So what I want you to do first is make sure you have all of your materials. And remember, this is a video, so at any time you can pause this if you need to, take a break, or if, somebody needs you to do something, if you need to get materials. So keep in mind, this is a video and you can pause things. So first thing is, make sure that you have this guy printed out, okay? So this is basically what I would see normally. So you need to get your materials listed, and we're gonna need a large, medium circle on a color cardstock. Now let's talk about that real quick. It doesn't have to be like, guys, we're at home for most part, so you really shouldn't be going out to Walmart and buying anything. If you've got regular paper, like regular white paper like this, and some colored pencils or a highlighter, like I personally used a highlighter because that's all I had, okay? So don't freak out and think you have to run out and buy things, okay? That's not what we're doing here. We're gonna kind of improvise. Cardstock, the only reason it says cardstock is because it's thicker than normal paper. So if you have like some construction paper or anything like that, that would be best. However, we're improvising, so this regular white paper will work. Or honestly, guys, even your regular notebook paper will work, okay? So we're just gonna improvise here. The only thing about cardstock is it's thicker. So if you're using regular paper, just be careful that you don't tear it, because it's gonna be easier to tear, okay? So I'm gonna kind of walk you through everything. The first thing you should have is this piece of paper right here, okay? Now, if you've already printed it, it's not a big deal. Remember, you can just take your highlighter and color, and you don't even have to color the whole thing because this middle part is going to be covered up. So you just need to color from this black line to somewhere on the side of these little dots, okay? It doesn't have to be far. So basically from here to here, color that one color. Or if I had some cardstock just laying around from different things. If you have cardstock or regular color paper, print it out like this, okay? If you don't have that, remember, just take a minute and color from this black line out to the side of this black dot, all the way around from there, okay? Take a minute, do that. Pause the video. All right, so now you should have had time to color that. Remember, I said pause the video if you needed time, okay? The next thing that you need will be an even bigger circle. Let me put it like this so you can just see that. So you're gonna need this is a bigger circle. The first one that you had was a medium one. This is the big one. All right, now again, you don't have those little black dots like the other one did. So again, just color from this black line of the circle out to maybe around here somewhere, because all of this middle part will be covered up. All right, if you had some extra paper laying around that was, I don't know, some cardstock or something, then you can print it out like this. All right, pause the video, make sure you've got that. All right, now that you've either got this colored in or you've got it printed from another piece of paper, remember, pause it if you need extra time. The next thing we're gonna do is we should have this one, okay? All right, now again, these two triangles need to be colored one color together. So if you're going to color them red, color both of those red. I'm just picking a random color here, guys. All right, the 45 triangles need to be colored the same color, but a different color than this guy. So if you colored these two guys red, then pick another color and color these two guys, I don't know, blue. All right, now the only thing about coloring these is that you notice they have numbers in them, okay? You don't want to color them so dark that you can't see those numbers, and you don't have to worry about coloring this circle if you don't want to. It's up to you. All right, so let's just pick a color. We picked red. We're going to color these two red, but not too dark. We're going to color these two blue, but not too dark, and then pick one more color, I don't know, green. We're gonna color these two green together, okay? So take a minute. You're not coloring this. Don't color this. You're gonna color these two colors one color, these two triangles a different color, and these two triangles a completely different color. Okay, pause the video, take a minute and do that real quick. All right, so I printed mine on some color paper like this. And again, these two should be colored the same, these two should be colored the same, and these two should be colored the same. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut all of those guys out, all right? So you're gonna take your medium color, or your medium circle, and remember, yours didn't have to be on color paper. You could have had regular white paper and just colored in the sides a little bit. That's completely okay. All right, take a second, pause the video, and cut this guy out along this black line. Go. All right, so now that when you cut it out, it should look like this. Ignore this hole for right now. That's something different. Ignore that. Yours should be cut out like this. All right, next thing, take your large circle, and remember, yours could have been on regular white paper and just had a little sliver colored all the way around. That's fine. All right, go ahead and pause this video real quick and cut this one out around the black line as well. Go. All right, so now that you've paused the video and cut it out, ignore this hole right here. That's coming different. Ignore that. But yours should look something like mine unless you needed to color yours around the side, okay? All right, last thing is this one's going to take a little bit longer than the other ones. Let's take this guy. All right, I want you to do this step by step with me, okay? One thing at a time. One thing at a time. The only thing I want you to do is cut out this circle right here along this black line. That's only, don't do anything with these triangles yet, guys. Nothing with those triangles. Just this circle along that black line. Go. All right, now that you've done that, you should have your circle cut out. Looks like this. It's got your 1, 2, 3, and 4th quadrants on there. All right, now next thing is you should still have this paper with this guy cut out. All right, now what I want you to do is I want you to cut out all 6 of your triangles, but do not separate this circle from the triangle, all right? So here's what I want you to show you. When you cut out these two guys, it should look like this. Remember, they were colored, and you could have colored in the circle or the right triangle. It doesn't matter. But you should have these two guys colored the same color, and I want you to take just a minute, pause the video, and cut those two guys out. Go. All right, now that you've done that, next thing I want you to do is cut out these two triangles. Make sure that you keep the circles attached, and when you do that, they should look like those two guys. And remember, you could have colored in your circles, and I colored mine with a highlighter, guys, because that's all I had. All right, take a minute, cut out these two, go. All right, now that you've cut out these triangles and these two triangles, we have these two left. Same thing, make sure you have these two circles attached. And when you get finished, they should look like that. All right, take a minute and get all of your triangles cut out, go. All right, guys, now that we're back from cutting those out, remember this is a video, so you can pause it anytime we go too fast. All right, grab your 3 circles. Grab your 3 circles, okay? These 3 guys. All right, now what I need you to do is take a pencil or a pen, not a knife, but something with a sharp end to it, okay? So for example, I'm gonna take this pen right here, and I'm gonna take the end of it, and I'm gonna stick my pen right here in the middle of those 4 quadrants, and I'm going to press a hole through. Now look, notice how it doesn't go very far through, okay? You just need the hole big enough, but not too big, okay? If you make it too big, then I'm going to zoom that in so you can kind of see how big that is. If you make it too big, then what we do in just a minute to clamp all 3 of these together, they'll fall apart, okay? So don't make it too big. Don't make it too big. All right, now that you've done this small circle, all right, here's what I need you to do. All right, so you should have pi over 2 at the top, 3 pi over 2 at the bottom, okay? This may not make a whole lot of sense about these numbers yet, but that's the reason we're doing this project and this activity, okay, is to help us learn. All right, so make sure you've got pi over 2 at the top, 3 pi over 2 at the bottom. All right, now line up this small triangle. See how I've got my y-axis lined up with 3 pi over 2 and pi over 2? And pi is lined up with 2 pi and my x-axis. Notice how I can see all of my black dots. Notice how I can see all of my numbers. Nothing's covered up. So once you get all that, okay, what I want you to do is take you some glue or some tape, or honestly, if you don't have any of that, it's not a big deal. We can improvise. But if you have glue or if you have tape or glue the back of this circle, the back of the small circle, and then very carefully make sure everything's lined up, make sure nothing's covered up, and put it like that. Now, I don't have glue and I don't have tape, so I'm going to have to improvise. Okay, a lot of you may have to do that. Pause this video, do that, go. All right, now that yours is glued, remember mine's not glued because I don't have any of that, okay? Now that yours is glued, remember that hole that you put through this yellow or whatever color this small circle is? All right, take your same pen or whatever, stick it through that hole, and now push it through until it is through both of them, okay? Make sure you can see that pen or that pencil through both circles, all right? And then grab your third circle. Pause the video if you need extra time. All right, your third circle should look like this. Your 90 degrees should be at the top. 270 degrees should be at the bottom. 0 and 180 should be on the sides. All right, now that you've got that, take your two circles. Hopefully you were able to glue yours because you see mine kind of move apart. They won't move in just a minute, but they will for right now. All right, so same thing. Pi over 2 should be at the top. Line that pi over 2 up with that 90, all right? All right, so same thing. Notice when I have everything lined up that I can see all of my numbers. I can see all of my dots. Everything's centered. This is why I said it wasn't a big deal that you couldn't see, that you only colored on the outside. Remember that? Because that's the only thing you're going to see. All right, take your pen one more time. Go through that same center dot that you put through the first two, and then poke it through. Might have to wiggle it. Now, if you're doing regular paper, be careful because it will tear very easily, okay? All right, and then poke it through until you can see the pen on the other side, okay? All right, now once it's through all three of them like that, take these first two guys. Remember how hopefully you were able to glue them or tape them together? All right, now glue or tape the back of the medium-sized one and then paste it. Remember, make sure you can see all your numbers. Make sure 90 and pi over 2 were lined up, and then paste that down like that. Pause the video, do that real quick. All right, now remember, mine, I didn't have any glue or anything, so mine is not glued down. So mine's still going to move a little bit. Hopefully you were able to glue yours. All right, now find your circles. Now find your circles. Excuse me, not your circles, your triangles. I'm sorry, guys. Find all your triangles. And you notice some of them are taller than others. All right? So it doesn't really matter which one goes first. But I like to put these guys. So they're going to go like this. So what I need you to do is I need you to pause this video, or actually I don't have holes through mine, so you don't really even have to pause it. And I need you to poke a hole through the middle of all 6 of these small circles. So all your triangles have a small circle. Poke a hole through the middle of them, okay? Do that, go. If you've already got yours, you can just fast forward this part. Now, if you end up tearing one of your circles, it's not a big deal, okay? Hopefully you just have some tape, or if you're able to print something out again, just print something out again, okay? It's not the end of the world. I'm doing this with a pen, so mine all have writing all over them. All right, so here's what we're gonna do now. You're gonna take these two triangles that have the 30 degrees at the origin, and you're gonna put these two guys together like that, okay? Then you're gonna take your 45 triangles, and it doesn't matter which one goes on top of which, and you're gonna put it together like that, okay? Oop. Now if they twist a little bit, it's not a big deal for right now because we're gonna put them all together. All right, then you're gonna take the last ones, or the tall ones, like this. So it should look something like this when you get finished. Now we're not gonna glue any of these triangles down because we actually wanna make these swivel around. All right, now if you've got a pencil, you can actually take, we're gonna improvise, remember? If you've got a pencil, you can actually take that pencil and stick it through all 6 of those triangles and all 3 of those circles. So that way you can just use your pencil as the pendulum that spins all these around. I actually had, this is what we would actually use in class, is these little things. They're called a brad, looks like this. And like I bought them at Walmart a long time ago to look like this. And if you have anything like this, maybe you can get a paper clip to work. Just look around your house and see if there's something that you can use that looks like that, okay? And you're gonna stick that through all of those, all right? So I'm gonna take my top 2 and I'm gonna stick it through. Now I may have to make my holes a little bit bigger, guys, because that brad is a little bit thicker than that pin. That's the air conditioner that y'all hear that just kicked on. All right, so I've got my first 2 together like that. And again, you want that hole to be big enough so that they swivel around, but not too big so that it the brad falls through. All right, then you're gonna take your 45s, still have these 2 together. You're gonna slip that in behind there. All right, so now you should have 4 of them all together. Now notice I haven't clasped that brad, it's still stuck together. All right, and then take the last ones, put those in here. This is kind of tricky. All right, okay, so now we got all 6 of our triangles together. These are your special triangles. Now look, I didn't put my holes exactly in the middle, so my guys are not exactly straight. They got a little arc to them. That's okay. All right, now you've got all 6 of them together, and you're gonna put, now remember, your circles should all be hopefully glued or taped down. You're gonna put them through one at a time. If they're not glued down, you're gonna put them all together at a time. Now the only thing about if they're not glued down is mine are not glued down. So notice how my circles are still spinning. So you want to make sure that the only thing that you want to spin are these triangles, okay? You do not want these circles to spin, all right? Now, if your triangles don't spin very easily, then that means your hole is not big enough. So if you want to take it back apart and make your hole a little bit bigger, that's perfectly fine. All right, so I'm going to flip mine over now that I've got everything together. And I'm going to split this brad apart if I can. There we go. And now you don't want to have it too terribly tight because again, you want these triangles to move around a little bit. All right. So now, and again, you don't want these circles to move. You only want the triangles to move. So make sure that your 90 degrees is lined up with your pi/2, which is lined up with this guy. All right. And do your best to keep those stationary. The only thing you want to move are your triangles. And I did not make my holes big enough, so you notice mine are not moving very easily. It's not a big deal though. All right, that's what yours should look like for right now. If you need to, pause the video before we go on. All right. Okay, so now we're going to keep this to the side for right now, and we're going to get these worksheets out so that we can work through them. Okay, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to find this guy. Okay, all right. Now, here's what I want you to do. You see how it's got the triangle in there? We're just learning about why this unit circle is the way it is, okay? So notice that it only has the 45 at the center on the right-hand side. So we're going to move all of these guys away. Ooh, I think I just tore this guy. Oops, oops, oops. See, I told you they tear easily. It's okay if yours tears. All right, so we're going to pretend like these are not here, okay? And we're only going to look at this triangle. That's supposed to be the 45. I told you my guys were tearing. My holes are not big enough, y'all. Oh, goodness. There we go. Like that. All right, so notice that when I do that, when this is lined up on the x-axis, it has to be lined up on the x-axis. Notice that it points to the 3 pi over 4 and to the 135, okay? Those guys match up. Now, that's important because if you look at these sides right here, the pi over square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2, and the 1 as the hypotenuse, that's where we're getting this number from of the 3 pi over 4 and the 135 degrees, okay? All right, so now the one they give us now is this one. You see how it's got the big black dot right here? All right, so you're going to take your pen or your pencil, and you're always, always, always going to take that dot and you're going to draw it back to the x-axis. Always back to the x-axis, never the y-axis. All right, and then you're going to draw it back to the origin, like that. And your right angle is always here, and your theta is always there. Okay? All right, so now if you look at your triangle, you see this dot is down here in the 4th quadrant, and you want to move these triangles around so you can kind of, ooh, not the circle. You can move these triangles around. And so that you can see, once it's lined up on the x-axis, it was 5 pi over 3. So when these are lined up on the x-axis, and these guys are lined up on the x-axis, you notice the one that lines up with 5 pi over 3, what's the theta? That's 60. That's at the origin, right? And so basically, that's how they're, I want you to see that's why we're getting the 5 pi over 3 and the 300 degrees. They're from these special right triangles. All right? So using only your handmade unit circle, draw and label the appropriate special right triangle that corresponds to the given radian measures. Make sure the right angle on your triangles is lined up with the x-axis. Add negative signs when appropriate. All right, so what that means is if you're looking at this guy, okay, 60 degrees was at the origin, 30 degrees was on the side. So this is going to be 60 degrees. This is 30 degrees. All right, look at your triangle. The side of my triangle, my y-axis, if you look at this guy, it's a square root of 3 over 2. But from the x-axis, I went down. So that guy is going to be negative square root of 3 over 2. All right, then look at that same triangle again. Look at this guy right here. The x-axis is 1/2, and the hypotenuse is 1. So the hypotenuse is 1, and the x-axis is 1/2, like that. All right, now from the origin, I went right 1/2. So that's positive 1/2, and that's it. All right, now let's look at this one. Same thing. Gonna draw from the dot, always, always back to the x-axis, and to the origin. Always, always. All right, so this is in the 3rd quadrant. All right, so when you have your triangles always lined up on the x-axis, the 3rd quadrant is here, and it was 4 pi over 3. All right, so let's get these guys lined up on the x-axis. 4 pi over 3 is right here. Notice that this triangle is the one that's matched up to it. So 60 degrees is at the origin, 30 degrees is at the top. Like that. All right, now look at your sides. This guy right here was our triangle that touched 4 pi over 3. All right, so this side is square root of 3 over 2. This side is 1/2. This side is 1. All right. From the origin, we went left. So that means this guy is going to be negative 1/2. Oops. negative, there we go. And from the x-axis, we went down. So this guy is going to be negative. Left and down are negative, right and up are positive. All right, and that's it. Go to the next one. This guy from the dot, always back to the x-axis and back to the origin every time. All right, now notice this guy is in the second quadrant. All right, so if I line these on the x-axis, none of those hit the second quadrant. Okay, so let's spin that around. Oop, not my circle. Spin that guy around. And again, my triangles are kind of tearing a little bit because I didn't make my holes big enough because we're improvising. All right, so let's line that up in the on the x-axis in the second quadrant. And 2 pi over 3, oh, the same triangle. All right, the same one. So 60's at the origin, 30's on the side. Or at the top, should I say, not the side, like that. All right, look back at your handmade circle. This guy's the one we're looking at. The x-axis is 1/2, the hypotenuse is 1, and the y-axis is square root of 3 over 2. Like that. All right, from the origin, we went left 1/2, so that's negative. Make that a little bigger. We went up square root of 3 over 2, so this guy is positive. All right? All right, so I want you to keep going on all of those, and they're not always going to be, let's do one more together because this one's not that same triangle. All right, so from the dot, always back to the x-axis and back to the origin. Put your right angle. All right, now notice that it's lined up on the x-axis and it's in the second quadrant. All right, so let's line these guys up. Second quadrant. What was the dot? 5 pi over 6. All right, so line these up. Notice that this one right here is the one that lines up. So 30 is at the origin this time. 60 is at the top this time. All right, let's do that. 30 is at the origin. 60 is at the top. All right, now look at your sides. We have the same numbers, 1/2 and square root of 3 over 2, but square root of 3 over 2 is on the x-axis this time, and 1/2 is on the y-axis, and 1 is still our hypotenuse. All right, so let's do that one. All right, from the origin, we went left, so that's going to be negative square root of 3 over 2. And then from the x-axis, we went up, so that's positive 1/2. All right, you got 4 more. Try those real quick. All right, so this one right here, everything should be positive because everything was in the first quadrant. All right, keep going. All right, so this one, notice how that 1/2 is negative because from the x-axis you went down, but the square root of 3 over 2 is positive because from the origin you went right, and right is positive. All right, 2 more, keep going. All right, so again, this is a video, so you can pause it if I'm going too fast. All right, so 30 should be at the origin. Square root of 3 over 2 should be negative because from the origin you went left. And 1/2 should be negative because from the x-axis you went down. All right, 1 more. All right, last one, same thing, everything's in the first quadrant, so everything is positive. So pretty easy stuff. So this is why everything is coming from special right triangles. I know some of y'all are like, yay, special right triangles. They're the best in the world, right? All right, so let's put that one to the side real quick. And next thing I want you to grab is this guy. Take a minute and get it ready if you need to. Pause it if you need to. All right, so you're gonna look at this. You're gonna look at this unit circle right here to be able to fill in everything else, okay? All right, so first things first is you're gonna start at 0 degrees, which is also 0 pi. Now you're gonna have to kind of squeeze all that in a little bit. All right, next one should be your 30 and your pi over 6, your 45 and your pi over 4, your 60 and your pi over 3, and your 90 and your pi over 2. All right, take a minute and do that. All right, so it looks something like that. All right, let's do our second quadrant. Look at your circle that you made. All right, so you've got 120 and 2 pi over 3, 135, 3 pi over 4, 150 and 5 pi over 6, and 180 and pi. Do your best to squeeze it in. And don't worry about having to memorize these numbers. First of all, I'm going to show you a really cool trick so that you won't ever have to memorize it. You can just add all the way around. And second of all, you can ask anybody in pre-cal. You're going to use this so much, you have no choice but to know where they are, okay? Because you're just going to use it so often. All right, and keep going on the third quadrant down here. You have 7 pi over 6 and 210, 5 pi over 4 and 225, 4 pi over 3 and 240, 3 pi over 2 and 270. Let's fill those in. Do your best to squeeze them in if you can. You can go outside of the box too if you write big. All right, so yours should look like that. And we're gonna do this last quadrant. All right, now this one's a little bit tricky, okay? So these three are normal, 5 pi over 3 and 300, 7 pi over 4 and 315, 11 pi over 6 and 330. But if you notice, this one dot has both 0 pi, that really should be a pi right there. Should be both 0 pi and 2 pi, both 0 degrees and 360, because you start here, you go all the way around, and you also end here, okay? So we're gonna try to squeeze these guys in a little bit. All right, let's do that. All right. Okay, so these two boxes both go with that same dot. All right, now what's the most important is going to be these ordered pairs, okay? This is what you're going to use. These ordered pairs are what you're going to use for every single, almost, I don't want to say every single, but almost every single unit in pre-cal, all right? So what I want you to know at the top is you have an X and a Y value, right? All these have X and Y, X and Y, X and Y. So X is cosine and Y is sine, all right? So that's not really gonna help us fill out the unit circle, but this is why, this is going to be very important for later, okay? All right, so if you're looking at your triangles, here we go. Line up on the x-axis, remember, x-axis. So let's look, this triangle lines up with the pi over 6, all right? So notice the x-axis is square root of 3 over 2. The y-axis is 1/2, okay? So x is square root of 3 over 2, y is 1/2. And again, guys, we're not going to have to do this every single time. I'm just using this to show you what's going on. So don't freak out like you're going to have to recreate all of this, okay? I'm just showing you where we're getting these numbers from. All right, next one, 45 degrees. All right, line your 45, line the x-axis up. 45 goes with this dot. All right, so notice your x-axis is square root of 2 over 2. Your y-axis is also square root of 2 over 2. Like that. And we got one more. Line this last, line it up with the x-axis. Line the last one up with this dot, and the x-axis is 1/2. The y-axis is square root of 3 over 2. All right, so x is 1/2, y is square root of 3 over 2. All right, now remember that these were the exact same triangles, okay? So whatever this ordered pair is the same as this ordered pair, all right? So pi over 3 is the same as 2 pi over 3. All right, so here we go. Pi over 3 is the same as 2 pi over 3. These are the exact same numbers. So we're going to rewrite 1/2 and square root of 3 over 2 over here on this side. Now, the only catch is that everything in the first quadrant is positive, because this is the first quadrant, right? Because we went from the origin, we went right and up. But everything in the second quadrant is negative and then positive, because from the origin, we went left, which is negative, and up, which is positive. So it's going to be the exact same numbers, but that guy's going to be negative. All right, so that means if these two dots match up, that means the middle two dots match up, which means I'm going to have the exact same numbers, square root of 2 over 2. But in the second quadrant, the first guy is negative. And that means the last guy is going to match up. Pi over 6 is going to match up with 5 pi over 6. Notice that they all had the same. This one was both over 3. These two are both over 4. And these two are both over 6, right? So they match up together. Same exact numbers. But that x-axis is negative. All right, now, if you're looking at this guy, remember that these exact same triangles can swivel around to the bottom to line up with the x-axis again, right? All right, so again, if I line this up with the x-axis, 7 pi over 6 lines up with the 60 degrees, which means that my x was square root of 3 over 2, and my y was 1/2. So x is square root of 3 over 2, and y is 1/2. Again, notice that this is over 6. This one was over 6. They have the same numbers. This one was over 6, and they have the same numbers, right? The only difference is that in the third quadrant, both are negative. And that's because from the origin, you went left, which is negative, and down, which is negative. All right? So the trick is, if they're both over 6, find any of them that are over 6, and they have the same numbers. This guy is 5 pi over 4. So find another over 4 here. It's going to have the same numbers. Find the other over 4 here. It's going to have the same numbers, but they're both going to be negative. So negative square root of 2 over 2 and negative square root of 2 over 2. All right, this one, last one, is over 3. So find any other over 3. Here's over 3. It's going to be 1/2 square root of 3. Here's over 3. 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. All right, so same numbers. 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. But in the third quadrant, everything is negative. All right, we got the last one. We've got the fourth quadrant. And everything is positive and then negative. And that is because from the origin, you went right, which is positive, and down, which is negative. All right, so same thing. 5 pi over 3. If you find any other over 3, this one's over 3. This one's over 3. Notice they are all going to have 1/2 and square root of 3 over 2. But in the fourth quadrant, the second guy is negative. All right, and then the last one, 7 pi over 4. Find any other over 4. like this one's pi over 4. Square root of 2 over 2 is the number for both of them, but the second guy is going to be negative. And then this one is over 6. So like this one is also over 6. It's going to have the same exact numbers. Square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2, but the 1/2 is going to be negative. So my trick that we remember is starting at the top. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All of them are over 2 as a fraction. And all of them have a square root on the top, but 1 is a perfect square. So if I took the square root of 1, it just gives me 1. But all of them have a square root on the top. It's just that 1 was a perfect square. And that's my trick. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All over 2 and all have square roots except the perfect squares. All right, now we're going to go back and do the reference angles at the top and bottom and left and right. Now, they're reference angles for a reason, and we'll get to that a little bit later, all right? So the first thing I want you to notice is that you have a radius of 1. No matter where you go, you have a radius of 1. So from the origin, if I go right 1, right is the x-axis. That means the 1 goes in the x spot. And then I didn't go up and down any, so it'd be 0. All right, and this one, we're going to go from the origin. This time we're going to go up. Up is the y-axis. So that means the 1 is going to go in the y spot, and then 0. All right, and this guy, we're going to go left 1. Now, left 1 is two different things. Left is negative, and it's also on the x-axis. So that means I'm going to put -1 in the x spot. And then I went up and down 0, so it goes in the y spot. All right, last one. I'm going to go down 1. Now, down has two different things. Down is negative, and it is also on the y-axis. So that means I'm going to put -1 in the y spot. And that means 0 goes in the x spot, like that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your unit circle all filled out. Now, don't worry if it feels a little overwhelming at first. Guys, I've taught this class for 7 years. It always feels overwhelming at first, but you can ask anybody that's in pre-cal after you do it a couple more times. And then I'm going to send out a video every day of us literally just filling this out. And the second time is going to feel so much easier. The third time is going to feel even easier than that. The fourth time is even easier than that. All right? So don't worry about it whatsoever. All right, now the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to do this tomorrow, okay? So I want you to have this guy printed out, okay? And if you want to work on it, that's fine. If you want to work on it, that's fine. But we're going to do it all together tomorrow. And notice that there are exactly the number of blanks as there are dots on your paper, okay? So every one is going to be used once, no more than once, okay? And I'm going to show you some tricks tomorrow about how to fill this out. So be looking for that video tomorrow. Bye, guys. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face if you don't need to. And I love you guys. I will see you as soon as we get back to school.